Train the muscles, not the joints.
So there's a guy that made a pretty smart comment. He said it's not absolutely necessary to go to failure all the time in order to cause the muscles to adapt, because doing successive sets can lead to overall stress of the system, and some people refer to this as volume. The thing is, I would say this is a true statement. You don't have to hit absolute failure all the time with every single muscle group, because some exercises, like I've said before, are more dangerous to hit failure than others. So you wouldn't really want to hit positive failure in deadlift or squats. Because if you hit absolute failure, what happens is that the muscles that are supposed to stabilize your spine, if they hit fatigue, then you may incur an injury, which is why I say this specifically in my training programs, to not hit absolute failure when it comes down to squat or deadlift. Now, under certain circumstances, such as bicep curls, you may be able to go to failure because there's not as much danger involved. There's not as much stability that is required from the muscles that are actually moving the weight. They don't need to actually stabilize an area. There's not as much energy going towards that, right? So there's certain joints that are inherently more stable. And under those circumstances, you can hit failure. Now, the other question is, what about the CNS and the overall load on the system? Because going to failure is a lot more taxing, a lot more hard on the system. The thing is, there are certain times in my life where I found when I did brief stints of absolute failure and strip sets and all that kind of stuff, I noticed that I got more results in that area. Now, this was particularly prevalent when it comes down to training arms, especially when it comes down to training shoulders or chest and stuff. The thing is that you have to use every technique with a grain of salt, as they say. It has to be the right technique on the right time, because the thing is, you can't hit failure all the time. Hitting absolute failure all the time will burn you out. Say you're doing strip sets and negatives and all this kind of stuff, and lifting weights more than what you can do for 1 rep max and then doing negatives. This will overtrain you very quickly, and there is obviously a risk of injury involved. So you have to always apply a technique with that in mind, saying, does this feel like the right thing for my body right now? Like sometimes you'll walk into the gym and you'll be totally flat, and it feels like you shouldn't be training at all, like you just feel exhausted. That's probably not the right day to be doing strip sets or pushing so deep into failure you want to puke, right? I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's a blend of both going on. There are some exercises you don't want to hit failure in, but you want to challenge the body. And what positive failure means in those circumstances is going to have a different definition. So positive failure is going to have a different definition in those circumstances, meaning that when you cannot maintain perfect technique, that's when you've hit failure. When you can feel that your body's starting to deviate from perfect technique, meaning keeping your back slightly arched and making sure that you're nice and tight all the way down, all the way up, and say in the instance of a squat, then that means you're already at failure, and that's when you should re-rack the weight. Now, the thing is, with bench press, I would also say this is true. If the weight is all of a sudden going all over the place, you're all uneven when you're pushing, you know, one side's going up more than the other, you've already hit failure before you hit that point. And this will ensure that you don't incur the risk of an injury. Right? So technique does matter. You do want to make sure you maintain control of the weight. And like I said, whenever there's lower back involved, you want to maintain a next level of control, because there's so many different joints involved in that movement that some deviation from the movement can really cause an injury. So yeah, do you have to hit failure? I think you have to hit failure sometimes. I think you do have to push and cause that adaptive response in the body, because really what you're trying to do is give your body stress. And the question always is what amount of stress is enough?
Easy shit. Easy shit! It's easy shit!
certain technique for a period of time, you notice that the body almost gets stabilized, where it's like, okay, I don't need to change. Everything's fine. I'm strong enough to maintain this volume. I'm strong enough to maintain this workout that you're doing. So I find shocking the system is not necessarily a bad thing with the weight training. Now, some people say shocking the system doesn't exist, it doesn't matter. I will respectably disagree on that one, because the thing is that just increasing another set is a different type of stimulus than going all out and making sure that muscles hit absolute failure. And my brother and I trained together a lot in the garage over the years, and I was doing the 4 sets of 10 on the bench. And what my brother was doing was he was doing as many reps as he could on the first set, as many reps as he could in the second set, as many reps as the third set. So in the end, our volume was the same, but I noticed his chest was developing differently than mine. See, this is how I know this stuff. It's not because I just some sort of ambiguous sort of, guesswork that I'm doing on my own, but I watched what happened with my brother's physique, and his physique seemed to change slightly. Our strength was similar, but I noticed he was tapping into a different muscle fiber content in his chest at that time. And people were saying, well, your brother's chest is a little bit more developed than yours. Well, this was what was happening at that time. And this was when we were really young. So I started to actually observe this kind of stuff at an early age. And this is kind of why I say, although two things might look the same, so you get 40 reps total for your workout on the bench with a certain weight, and 40 reps total with a certain weight with another technique, where you're basically hitting failure every single set. And this one, you're just saying, I'm going to do 4 sets of 10. This is a different type of stimulus in the body, and I think it's good to do both. It's not always good to stick to just one, because volume is volume and it's all the same. I think there is an oversimplification that's sometimes going on out there when it comes down to weight training, and it's good to really test those series for yourself and see what is really giving you the most gains. So whatever's causing gains, stick with it, that's fine. But once the gains start to stop, then you might have to try something new and just see, okay, is your theory really correct or not? So I hope this video helps you out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching, and take care for now. And oh yeah, thanks to the Patreon subscribers here for helping me out and supporting me. If you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturallandbodybuilding.com. Oh yeah, and share my stuff. Hey, come on, let's share that stuff, huh?